Shalom Havarim. I'm really excited because I am going to do a series of videos for you to help you see that God is with Israel even today, that He was involved in freeing Israel from Muslim hands back in 1917, all World War I, up to the formation of Israel post-World War II, and has been with Israel during every conflict, including the conflict this last summer, and has blessed and protected His people. You know, God's Word is eternal and unchanging, and if anyone's taught you differently, then that's not in the Scriptures. Let's look at what did God promise Abraham directly. Let's look at Genesis 17, verse 7 and 8. He says, I am establishing my covenant between me and you, along with your descendants after you, generation after generation, as an everlasting covenant, to be God for you and your descendants after you. And I will give you and your descendants after you the land in which you are now foreigners, all the land of Canaan, and as a permanent possession, and I will be their God. You know what? If you're a Christian and you believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you are grafted into Israel. The church is not a replacement. Not in the Scriptures. Sorry. Yeshua, Jesus, was a Jew. He was from the tribe of Judah, and therefore you are grafted into the tribe of Judah. Be a Bahrain and check it out. Read your Scriptures. If you don't see it yet, it's because you haven't read it enough or read it in the original language. You've been taught the traditions and doctrines of men, and people tend to believe whatever they've heard with their ears and not necessarily checked it out and verified it with what is written in that book. And I beg you, get it out, look at it, and read it. When God made this promise to Abraham, He cast him into a deep sleep. This was a one-sided covenant God would keep and keep perfectly, and it was to be everlasting, not changed, people. Sorry. All right, so let's look at what happened this summer, miracle-wise. The Iron Dome system in itself is a huge miracle. Never before has the technology existed to shoot missiles out of the sky with such precision and accuracy. Although it's extremely expensive, it's amazing that the economy of Israel was able to hold up and withstand the financial burden of sending 100 truckloads of medicines and food and water and necessities into the Gaza area to help those people that they were fighting against, but also I believe it was $50,000 or $80,000 every time that Iron Dome was deployed, and that's a huge burden on the state of Israel. We're talking thousands. I think it was like a total of 6,000 rockets just during the period of the summer rained down on Israel. It got to the point where the Israel economy was coming to a standstill because they couldn't function. They were living in bomb shelters day and night, and even the airport was closed down. You know, by the USA and other foreign countries weren't allowing flights to go into Israel. And so, you know, that kind of stuff had to stop. Operation Protective Edge was about putting an end to the constant bombardment from Gaza. So in this particular incident that I want to share with you came from Israel Today, and it was the experience related by a young Iron Dome technician who recounted that a missile was fired from Gaza, and that they know where the missiles are going to land. The system is so accurate, down to a radius of 200 meters, and this particular missile was going to hit either the Israeli towers or the Kiryat, Israel's equivalent to the Pentagon, or a central Tel Aviv railway station. Hundreds of people could have died. He said, "We fired the first interceptor and it missed. We fired a second interceptor and it missed." And this is extremely rare. He was in shock. At this point, he said, "We had just 4 seconds until the missile was to land. We had already notified emergency services to converge on the target location and had warned of a mass casualty incident." Suddenly, the Iron Dome happens to also calculate wind speed, among all things. It picked up a major, huge wind coming from the east, a very extremely strong wind that sent the missile flying into the sea. He said, "We were all stunned." He said, "I stood up and I shouted, 'There is a God!'" He said, "I witnessed this miracle with my own eyes, and it was not told to me or reported to me. I saw the hand of God send that missile into the sea." Well, there were other miracles that happened with the conflict, and you may wonder why, because maybe you still think the church is a replacement for Israel. Well, let me tell you, Israel still believes the words of the Bible, what you and I call the Old Testament. Many of them may not be believers. Yes, a good part of the population may be atheists, and a good part of the population may not be observant Jews. But trust me, during times of war and conflict, there's an old saying, there are no atheists in foxholes. And that is exactly what's happened this last year with Operation Protective Edge. For example, Colonel Ofer Winter is a commander of the Jivati Infantry Brigade. He described this another miracle that happened. He said that he and his troops were advancing on an enemy position, and they had made the assault had started during the nighttime, and they had expected to get where they needed to be before morning light, but that didn't happen. So morning light was about to occur, and their position would have been easily seen, and they would have been sitting ducks, basically. Snipers can easily pick them off. Well, the hand of God was again with them. This mysterious fog favorably covered him and his troops as the morning light came up, and safely protected them from the sight of their enemies until they were in a safe and secure position. It was also noted that when they were leaving Gaza this summer, that as the conflict was called to a close, at least Israel's fighting back, I should say, because Gaza did continue to send rockets for a while. But as Israel pulled back, there was a huge double rainbow that appeared in the sky over the troops, and that just really cheered them on. They all just looked up to the sky, raised their hands up to the sky, and shouted, "God is with us." So I thought that was a wonderful story to share with you, and I hope you're blessed by it. Be blessed and shalom.